Guys, we're back at it again with our Intro to Git series, and this time we're going to be talking about working with remotes, specifically the command git push. But first, just starting out, what is a remote? So I mentioned back in the first video in this series that one of the biggest strengths of Git and GitHub is that they allow collaboration. And so the remote, as it says here in the documentation, are the versions of the project hosted on the internet, and that is what allows you to collaborate with others, right, and manage these remote repositories. So I like to think of the remote as the source of truth. So that is the one that you want to be correct. You can do a lot of stuff on your local copy that that you wouldn't want on a remote, and so the remote should be clean. The remote should be correct, have the correct Git history, which we'll talk about, and so that's the one to be treated with the utmost care. You can do a lot of stuff locally that you would never want on the remote. So I'm going to go ahead and just show where the project is at. This is where we left off. So I just made a commit. So if you type git log, you can see I've got one commit in the commit history here. And so I just added this hello.txt file as it is, and there we go. And that's all that's going on as far as I know. Actually, I'm going to roll this back, discard. Okay, so this is the definitive state of the project. So if we run git status, we've got one commit and no changes to make. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to set up a GitHub repository. The GitHub repository will be the remote. So if you have a GitHub, you can come over here and say new repository. I'm just going to call this the same thing that I've called my local, which is yt-git, and description, Git demo for YouTube, public, and this is great. So there's a few different ways to do this. I already have an existing repository, so you can see that we have this command that you can copy and just run in your command line. What it's doing is it's adding this GitHub repo as the remote. And origin is an alias, so origin is what the remote is called on your local. So if you type origin in your local, it'll be referring to the remote. And so then when you push, you're pushing to the master branch on origin, which is this GitHub repository. So I might go ahead and create a README since those commands don't have it. A README is just a file that says what your project is about. So I'm just going to say a beginner's Git demo for YouTube, and just leave that there. And so now that I have the README, MD is Markdown, by the way. But now that I have that, I can just copy and go ahead and push this. So we're going to add the remote and then push. And everything's been pushed. So if we come back here and refresh, you know what I didn't do is add this README. I didn't make a commit. So this will show a good example of just making another commit, updating the history, and our next video will dive a little bit deeper into what's actually happening when you're making a commit and what is the commit history. But for now, I'll just say git add everything, git status. The dot is everything from where you are in the folder structure down. So git status, new file, I'm going to commit it, added README, and then git push. So push, it takes your local commits and essentially, your local history, and more or less sends it up to the remote. So now when I refresh, first of all, we have the README, which shows right here. So that's what I typed. And now we have our two commits. And if we go back here and type git log, we can see the same two commits, added hello.txt and added README, and added hello.txt, added README. And so push you can think of it as taking your local commits and adding them to your remote. But we'll get a little bit more in depth in history and what's going on there in our next video. So thanks for watching. Hope it was helpful. Feel free to like and subscribe.